The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
TV party tonight! What? TV party tonight!
Oh, we got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Don't want to talk about anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated
To our favorite shows.
Oh, my circuits!
Everybody loves Hypnotoad.
Scary dog!
Flirting at Blurnsball.
Futurama!
Hello, good evening, and welcome to TV Party Tonight. I'm your host, Alexis Hejna, and tonight, well, I don't know if I've actually got my usual cohorts joining me tonight, or if they may have been replaced. Can you guys prove it's you?
Don't know if I can. Boy, how long have I been a Skrull? Let's see. Let me count the years. What a time to be alive. What a time that this show sewed so much into the Marvel cinematic fabric. Okay, I might be overstating it just a little bit.
Yes, folks, tonight we are talking Secret Invasion, the latest adaptation for the MCU on Disney Plus. Or as many have also called it, Falcon and Winter Soldier Take 2 / Marvel. You really haven't learned your lesson yet, have you? Okay, yes, joining me is my Crypto Trivia co-host and the master of all things comic, Mr. Jesse Starcher.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I am Jesse Starcher. I'm pretty sure.
That's what he says. And sitting down there in the quiet all the way from Canada, Mr. Andrew Graham.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to put on the disclaimer that I do prefer the cold, and I used to live near a nuclear power plant, so chances of Skrull 50-50.
Who knows? All right. So, yes, Secret Invasion premiered June 21st on Disney Plus. This is, of course, an adaptation of what could arguably be considered one of Marvel's most famous comic book story arcs. The idea that several superheroes, among others, have been replaced with these shape-shifting Skrulls. Skrulls, of course, were introduced to those who haven't been reading the comic books. The Skrulls were introduced to us in Captain Marvel. The last we saw of them, they essentially said that they were getting scapegoated by the Kree, and they were looking for a new planet to call their own. We had Captain Marvel saying she was going to go off and help them, and we found out that Nick Fury has actually been off planet for a while with Talos, who was formerly played by Ben Mendelsohn, replacing him, as we saw at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home, while Nick Fury has been out in space, also helping the Skrulls find a new planet. This show picks up with Fury returning to Earth, saying, you know what, space is massively big. You cannot even begin to imagine how big it is. But you know what? I can't find a planet for you guys, so I'm giving up. There really is no other way to say it. It's like you were out there for, 3 years, and you have apparently combed all of space, and you have found no hospitable planets for the Skrulls.
Right.
And somebody pointed out, why don't they just go to Thanos' farm?
Yeah.
There you go.
I mean,
he's not using it.
I'm sure Asgard might have some space too. We kind of know some people.
Yeah.
That might be able to. I don't know. Well, then again, maybe that was destroyed. So it's been a while.
And so the story sets up. We have our main antagonist, a Skrull named Gravik, who has pretty much said, you know what? Screw it. We're going to take Earth. And he is using a bunch of other Skrulls, and they're using their shape-shifting powers to make various countries think they're attacking one another. So we're going to go dumb, blow each other up. Because it really does not take that much to start World War III.
Apparently not.
Yeah. All right. So, Mr. Starcher, again, you are our requisite comic book aficionado. You did review Secret Invasion some time ago on your show. So, you want to give us kind of the liner point or the finer points, the liner notes about this comic?
I'll do my best because it's been a while. We covered it about 4 years ago on my birthday, apparently. And that's when the episode released anyway, May 6th of 2019.
Making a note, that's when your birthday is.
The easiest birthday in the world to remember, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there you go. So we talked about it then. It was me, Ronnie, I think Mark was involved, and Chris Armstrong. And this was a story, just like you said, it was pretty well known because it was 2008, I think is what I was seeing here, just to double check myself on the wiki. June of 2008 is when it starts. It ends. Apparently the storyline ends in January that following year. And at this point, Marvel is known for doing these events where it's going to be a big thing that affects a lot of books. But essentially, what you get in the book is just what they're trying to do here in this series, which is sow some sort of, I don't want to say discontent, but clearly the big cliffhanger of the whole thing is like, who is a Skrull and who isn't? I believe that's what they wanted to do here, but as far the comic series seemed to do it a lot better. This was written by Brian Michael Bendis, which if you guys probably recognize, he's one of the premier writers. I think he's over in DC right now. At least last time I checked. It's been a while since I read something from him. And it was
Wasn't
good.
he the one who pretty much invented Miles Morales?
I think he was, yeah.
Yeah, we're talking the ultimate, back when it was the Ultimate Universe. But yeah, I mean, as far as like the biggest moment that I can remember out of Secret Invasions is we learned that Spider-Woman, I think, was on this ship when they break into the ship and they start to realize that, holy crap, we've been, Spider-Woman's been around for the longest time, and here she actually is. Who else could possibly be a Skrull that's out there? That's about as far as I could take it. My memory is failing me as to any of the other. I just remember the big event part of it, and it being like, who should you trust? Who can you trust?
Mm-hmm.
Who are they? And what are their plans? If you've got sleeper agents, or I shouldn't say sleeper agents. If you got agents that look and sound just like the person that you thought they were, what devilry can they get up to? So there you go. That's about the best I can remember. Somebody else could probably throw some more detail on it if they want to, like in the comment section, but there you go.
Yeah, I think a lot of disappointment came from the fact that, again, this series really builds up, like Jesse said, the whole idea of who can you trust? Which of these superheroes that we know and love have been replaced by Skrulls? And admittedly, it's a little hard when we realize majority of the Avengers that we know and love have either been killed off or retired by this point. It's like, we're not going to get, Captain America or Tony Stark replaced. But yeah, the only superhero who is actually replaced is Rhodey.
Right.
Yeah, I think I wrote on our network chat, I said it's like going to Lollapalooza and the only concert you hear is Weezer. I mean, yeah, you like Weezer, but at the same time, it's like, what the hell?
Right.
Alexis Summer Rivers Cuomo is shedding a single tear.
He can get over it. He's got enough money. So yeah, this show really got raked over the coals. The final episode especially was some of the worst rated I've ever seen come out of the MCU, especially on Disney Plus. People just were so unforgiving about this.
You wanted so much more. Go ahead,
Mhm.
Andrew. Sorry.
I was
Yeah,
gonna say-
Andrew, why don't you go ahead?
It was the finale was in such a state that at the end of it, my wife, who'd watched the whole series with me, looked over and said, "You didn't like it," and I'm like, "Yeah, didn't like it." And I mean, it's kind of interesting, like, and I mean, I think I'll pick up on some of the points you guys have thrown out. Like, this was really a good case to try and pull that mood exercise in terms of tension, suspicion, paranoia, and in some cases early on, I think they get that. But it just kind of loses the track at some point. I mean, I think the other problem it has is that it's got a really, really good show to compare to that has a similar kind of tonal exercise recently in Andor, where I get lots of complaints about, or I hear lots of complaints from some people about how slow it was. But on the flip side, every single one of those episodes was riding on a razor's edge.
Absolutely.
You had stakes, you had something going, and this was definitely kind of the bad understudy. And I mean, maybe we'll talk writing issues later, but or underlying writing issues is what I'll call them. But yeah, I was disappointed by this.
Very much so. I mean, in the end, what was accomplished by this series? What has changed from when we start to when we finish? Besides a couple of characters are dead.
Yeah, a couple of like characters that we all like. My wife was pissed they killed off Colby Smulders.
Maria Hill, yeah. That
Yeah.
was a little surprising they killed her off.
Yeah. And if they did, then that should have been one of the characters to then bring back and have back as a Skrull again, even as a fake out, just because, again, that would get inside of Nick Fury's head.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah. Like I said, it just feels like there was so much potential for this. And yeah, at the end, I remember sitting there thinking, so Fury's going back into space where he has been for the last few years. What was accomplished?
What did we learn here? Essentially what we end up with is like this uber superhero that's going to be apparently just trying to blend in, and people are dead that we kind of knew about. And I'm like, oh, well, all right. I mean, and I guess you are left with the question, like, did they completely blow the lid off the Skrulls and who's a Skrull and who's not a Skrull? I assume we got a good bit of them, but we obviously don't know. There's so many that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like they can use that now as a way to write themselves out of something. Like, oh yeah, that person was a Skrull. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
and I mean, here's where I think is kind of the conflict on this show is on the one hand, you've got some really, really solid character work. I think some of the stuff that they put what the hell am I about to say? I'm sorry, it's been a long day.
I almost thought you were going to say Ben Affleck, and I was like, Ben Affleck.
Samuel L. Jackson, there we go. Samuel L. Jackson, Nick Fury through was really interesting in kind of examining the persona and the psychology of this cipher, for lack of a better word, that has been kind of traveling around the MCU for the few years, dealing with his levels of guilt about certain things that he felt he's left unaccomplished, some speaking into his personal life. So on that end, the character work is really good, but the plot doesn't back that up. And again, I think they were trying to balance having an enormous, what they eventually scaled up to kind of the world level, Avengers level threat, but dealing with it on a very, very small scale. But like you guys said, not having a whole lot of end consequences at the end.
Yeah. And that's really unfortunate because you want more. You wanted more from this. You wanted it to mean something, at least to the overall Marvel universe in some way, the Marvel Cinematic U, but it fell so short. And I honestly think that that's a problem I have with a lot of these Disney Plus series. I really think that there's a lot of promise, but it is inconsequential when it's all said and done.
And I think, I think going on the series per series, I'll kind of debate with you on that one. Like, I actually think I probably like Falcon and the Winter Soldier a little bit better than a lot of people. Okay. And I think that felt like that had a change in course. but that one is also one where you also could see that compressed down to a 2.5-hour movie and be really tight and really satisfying.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, we'll get to it in a little bit. I think they cribbed notes from Falcon and Winter Soldier way too much on this.
Oh no! Again,
particularly when it comes to the villain.
Yeah, so the villain is identical to.
Oh yeah,
I can't even remember her name, but yeah, she's fighting for her people. She's fighting for refugees, and so is Gravik. I will say I
and then
like.
she goes a step too far.
Yeah, now I will say I do like what's this guy's name? Kingsley Ben-Adir, who plays Gravik. As an actor, we're seeing a little bit more of him. This is clearly a jumping off point for him. He was also recently in the Barbie movie. He was one of the Kens. So
This Ken's a Skrull.
Well done. So I think we're going to see a lot more out of him because he's really good in the role. What disappointed me was the final episode also because that's kind of when things started to get interesting. Yeah. We had the president who was attacked by a Skrull who issues an order saying all on-planet alien forces are officially going to be seen as hostiles. And we have a sequence of various people being killed because people thought they were Skrulls. And one of them, yeah, that was a Skrull. Another, they killed an innocent woman. And they're like, no, she was a Skrull. She was a Skrull.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
a lot of that I think would have really benefited if we had used that in the series. Again, this show is trying, the concept of it is, who do you trust? So this idea of the public panicking, thinking, you know, I mean, just imagine the sudden rise in murder that we would get from people thinking that their neighbors, their family are Skrulls.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, go ahead, Jesse.
Oh, I was just going to say there's a bit of commentary there with the way that ended too. It feels like, but again, it is something where it's like that seems like a big deal. Clearly, if we're going to call all aliens hostile, non-resident planetary beings, hostile, that's kind of that means that's a big deal in my opinion. But it, okay, is that going to shape how things are going to be going on in the next movie, the next series? And I just walk away with this going, I doubt it. I really don't think that that's going to be something that's followed up on later on down the line. Maybe it will. I mean, you guys
haven't talked about the giant guy sticking out of the Indian Ocean.
I was just about to say something about that. Things happen in this world that are just completely forgotten about or whisked away.
By the way, I should add, Jason Teasley is commenting on my post here. He writes, "Don't trust anyone. Jesse is a Skrull."
Teasley, I would say Teasley's a Skrull. Don't worry.
All right, Teasley's serving a 5-minute game misconduct for not knowing what the Stanley Cup was.
I think Teasley's got to know what the Stanley Cup is. Oh, wait a second. He is a Skrull then, if that's the case. That's the answer. But yeah, I think that again, this is a show that really had so much packed into 6 episodes. 6, right? Total of 6.
6 episodes.
There's no way that it should have been that small of a number of episodes for a concept like this. And I am one of the guys that will sit here and say, do not give me 15 episodes of so-and-so, but I don't give me 6 for something like this. I can stand to have a little bit more so I can understand exactly the ramifications, or let your story breathe,
Quote from Jason: Stanley has a cup. Is it a thermos? You're gonna make Andrew cry, man.
Classic. All right, Andrew, I cut you off, man. Go ahead.
And I mean, I think you're absolutely right, Jesse. Like, I mean, the problem is there's a lot stuffed into it, but there's also not a lot dealt with. So, talking about the finale a little bit and talking about the president saying, hey, guess what? Every alien's now killable. Have we established anything in that guy's character to say that he's the kind of guy that would do that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a distinct lack of setup payoff there.
I say it's not the same president we saw in Iron Man. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the last American president we saw was in Iron Man 3.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't even know how long this guy's been president during the MCU. It was like, was he president during the blip?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think that, and this is kind of an overall comment that I think they've kind of failed on in terms of overall world building for the MCU, of understanding what the status quo of everything is, like, stuff like that. Like, how long has this guy been president? Was he president during the blip? I mean, that's something that you can slip in there really easily in like a press conference. But the other thing that kind of came out, and we're kind of jumping all over the place, but I'll just get this one out here. At some point they talk about, well, should we be calling in the Avengers?
Mm-hmm.
I'm still not sure who the Avengers are. Like, everyone's been kind of operating independently. I mean,
it's like, okay, so Cap is dead, Black Widow's dead, Iron Man's dead. We got Spider-Man. Shang-Chi isn't well known enough.
No one knows who
Wanda went
Spider-Man is
nuts. Doctor Strange, I don't know if he's. Yeah, that's actually true. Okay, I understand. He's supposed to be, but that's actually a good point. Yeah. That I understand they don't want to keep. Excuse me, that's on my throat there. Bringing in superheroes. And I understand they need to keep the budget down on the casting. But we really need to establish where we are now with the world's heroes.
Yeah.
I mean, who do you... It's like, okay, yeah, we have that scene where Fury says, we can't keep relying on them. And I get that. But who would you call?
Yeah.
And I think that's almost where you needed... And that was kind of my expectation for where the show was going to end, because Fury's been such a non-player for so long, and they kind of build that around his character. I kind of thought at the end of the series he was going to say something along the lines of, the world's going to hell in a handbasket. It's time to get the band back together. And then that's him kind of rebuilding the Avengers in some form.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at it as an excuse for this. This time it's personal. I that's the only thing. I was like,
you couldn't resist, could you?
You could have just looked at the camera and said, S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't have the budget for that. And I would have taken it as, this show doesn't have the budget for that, and completely understood.
Let's get meta. Well, apparently this thing cost $213 million to make.
I know.
Like, it doesn't, like, okay, I'm glad they did a lot of the, kind of the look and the feel of the show. They did some really good on-location shooting, and it had kind of the right feel and cinematography for a spy show.
It has a real gritty feel to it, very down and dirty, which, again, is very much so what you want.
And very much practical locations, streets of places, things like that. You're not, dealing with the volume or anything like that, or a lot of green screen, but I don't see where that translated to the screen in terms of budget value.
Right. I think one of the, I guess the two scenes that probably look like they spent some money on was the square scene where the explosions were happening. That's the one that stood out to me initially.
That wasn't a terrible scene.
And then the final fight, which, people were flying everywhere. CGI is going everywhere. So
we have Amelia Clark flexing Drax's arm. God.
That one got mildly spoiled to me when somebody put a picture on Twitter of a preview of the Secret Invasion finale, and it was that scene from Free Guy where Ryan Reynolds is hiding behind the shield with the Hulk arm, and it's like, I could not get that out of my head while I was watching it, because it is literally like that.
It really is.
It's not. Why?
That was about what? I don't know. That's probably about 500,000 worth of
but
CGI.
And I mean that. Do we want to talk about the kind of the finale as a whole, or how do we want to approach the?
Whatever you guys want to do. Honestly, I'm okay with either. I think the only other point that I really had, besides the ending, that drove me nuts was that you realize, aside from Gravik, no one had a plan.
Yeah.
I seriously, okay, I love Ben Mendelsohn. He is an
Yeah.
amazing actor.
Great actor.
I love him. I loved him as Talos. I genuinely loved him in Captain Marvel. You know,
Oh, yeah.
I really liked him
And it's
as
funny
the
because
leader
he
of the
played a
Skrulls.
villain for so long. He's an absolutely charming actor. He
Oh,
really is.
insanely. But you have this scene of him talking to Gaia about what they're going to do as far as getting land, and he essentially says his plan is stop Gravik and then go to the president and say, "We just saved the world. You owe us." And I'm like, who wrote that? Who wrote that and thought that would work?
Yeah.
You know,
I'm getting
and yeah,
mildly-
it kills me that it's like, okay, we understand. Okay, so let's assume that yes, Fury is scouted everywhere and he hasn't found a planet. And he's come back home and he's with Talos and they still need to find a place for all the Skrulls. Gravik is the only one who has a plan. He's the only one who's getting anything done. Talos, if you really want to help your people, come up with a plan to get them a place to live. You're not doing that. No one is. It just feels like no one is taking any incentive to move the plot along to where it needs to be to counter Gravik.
Yeah. And that's kind of interesting because it does come off like the Gravik Talos argument comes off as a little bit like a lightweight Magneto Professor X argument, kind of in terms of their positioning.
Mhm.
I will say I did, and I think that's a totally valid point regarding Talos. I do like Nick Fury not having a plan, him truly being on his heels. I think if there's anything that works on this show, it is the character work. So, I mean, Samuel L. Jackson gives a really interesting performance in terms of going through, this guy who's always been 3 steps ahead of everybody until somebody's 15 steps ahead literally took you off the board for 5 years. And he's dealing with the guilt of that. He's dealing with the guilt of, because he, as much as any of the Avengers, failed. He's dealing with the guilt of looking back on the Skrull situation and never having actually dealt with it properly and kind of failing these people as well. And just, starting to feel like he's being outpaced in the world. And that was really, really good. Talking about a couple of the other cast members. I mean, Emilia Clarke's really good. I was never a Game of Thrones fan, but, she's quite engaging in this.
Mhm.
And then we need to talk about the one person who we needed much more of on screen, and that would be Olivia Colman.
Oh,
Who
yeah.
walks away with
Yeah.
every damn scene she's in.
Yep.
Absolutely. Oh, she is such a good actress. I have not seen a lot of her, but she really does sell. I love just how she's so adorably coy
Yes.
when she's as just being threatening.
Mhm.
She chops off the one guy's finger and it turns into a Skrull finger. She's like, "Oh, okay, now we got that settled." Yeah, it's like I love it.
I can be your
It's
bestie or I can
hilarious.
be your not bestie.
Yeah, that was a good line.
But I mean, like, that one's interesting. And I mean, having somebody who's kind of Fury's vintage to play off of, I think is kind of interesting as well. But somebody who's obviously still in the game. Like I think we talked about it, but it's Kingsley Benadir.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
I swear to God, I kept accidentally saying Ben Kingsley first time I
Yeah.
talked about this show. It's,
I was
it's
just
right
checking
there.
that one, but it's like he gives a good performance. But I think the problem is that again, he's just way too much like the villain from Falcon and Winter Soldier, even to the point where he starts turning on his own people when they start questioning him.
Yeah, that was the one thing that kind of drove me nuts a little bit about this show is that to me, it felt predictable. The villain was something I had seen before, and I knew where this was going to end. I knew how things were going to go down. And so it just, as for a spy thriller, that's really what we should have here. I mean, who do you trust? What is going on? How do I get the one up on the bad guy? It was very, very predictable. And that's the only thing I hated about our villain here, Gravik, is that, yeah, the actor was great, but I knew what was going to happen, before. And it was like, okay, the whole turning on his people thing, that whole scene right there was something that I completely expected at some point. I do like the fact that, I mean, it was his people that were realizing that, yeah, he's a jerk and he does things that we're not exactly going about methods that they aren't approving of. But him going off the deep end and killing his own people. And then it's just like, well, okay, yeah, we got to make this guy a bad guy for sure. You could have been a little bit less heavy-handed with that, in my opinion.
A little more
but
morally gray.
yeah, I mean, right, exactly. I want some intrigue in my spy thriller, please. I'd like to sit there and be a little confused as to what's going to happen next, and that wasn't happening here.
Yeah. I mean, we all love a good megalomaniacal villain who's just pure evil, but I don't think villains like that really work well in spy thrillers.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and Gravik's motivation, I understand he's upset. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But man, there's other ways to go about this with all the power that you have. Anyway.
And I mean, I think that was actually getting to the finale a little bit. That was something that actually disappointed me, was that he had this great scene with Samuel L. Jackson, not Nick Fury, because it was Gaia, where they just kind of bore out all of his sins in front of him. And it was a great piece of work.
Mm-hmm.
And then, nope, it's Gaia. You just took all the emotional weight out of that scene.
Right.
Yeah,
it's gone.
You feel there's just this great weight that Samuel L. Jackson's carrying in that scene when he hands him the tube of DNA, as I'm going to call it, and says, "I'm giving this to you. Just leave Earth." It's like, I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of dealing with all this crap. Just take it and go. And yeah, that was great. And then you find out it's Guy. It's like, and moment ruined.
I was looking at the episode lengths here, and again, we got 6 episodes, but I mean, you're not even. I don't think they breach an hour. They're usually just under it. But the last episode was the shortest of this series.
I think so.
Gosh. And that was, I mean, that's where you could have shined. That's where you could have, like, okay, I'm about to make this worth it. You guys have sat through 5 episodes of this. Thank you. Here you go. We're going to have an hour of compelling television. But no, we get a fight, which is great. Everybody wants to see some fights. Everybody wants to see some Marvel people go, throw down. But now, as fun as it was to watch, I don't think it lived up to what I was expecting.
Yeah. You know what would have been interesting? We have the scene at the end of them freeing everyone from the compound. We see Everett Ross, Martin Freeman's character, who we saw in the first episode was a Skrull, but we didn't know where he was, if he was even still alive. Glad he's still alive. Glad they're keeping him around. He's a cool character. How cool would it have been if also in those containment pod things, I don't know what the hell they're called, we had some characters that we have seen in other MCU movies who hadn't shown up so far in the Secret Invasion series. And you have to suddenly go, wait, that person is a Skrull?
Yeah.
I mean, what if you saw some of the guards from Wakanda, or some of or like 1 or 2 of Spider-Man's friends from high school? How cool would that have been if you suddenly realize they have been Skrulls?
Somebody from Teclicon?
Which one?
From Namor's people.
Oh, right. Yeah. I forgot that. I'm so used to just calling it Atlantis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry,
like,
I know they changed it, but thank you for reminding me.
Yeah. I think there's kind of 2 other things that I do want to address. One is I want to talk about Priscilla and that kind of entire arc with finding out that Fury's been married this whole time. I actually really liked this story between those 2. I think it was kind of an interesting dynamic. I thought both of the actors had a lot of chemistry with each other and kind of played off each other really well. And I thought that the episode dedicated to them was actually quite good.
I did really like that. And again, that was quite interesting. The idea that, he's been married to a Skrull this whole time. And you spend a lot of time wondering, how long has he known?
Yeah. I mean, as soon as you see that first scene where she's chopping up the vegetables and then she changes into his wife. That's a great cliffhanger too, because they end the episode like right after that.
Mhm.
And I think that they did fine. I think it would have been interesting if we could have figured it out a little bit backwards, where we saw that that was his wife, and then later he leaves and she turns into a Skrull. But I'm not going to complain. That was great. And yeah, it is a nice piece of backstory, which I don't believe, as far as I know, I don't think that is something that happened in the comics. I'd have to look to double check and make sure, because there's a lot of comics I haven't read out there. But that adds a complexity to his character. So yeah, I agree with you. And them playing off of each other. And it's a very, I assume, difficult relationship. Especially with what she has to go through. Imagine, the only way you can fit in is look like somebody else, not just somebody else, a completely different species.
Mhm.
Probably, it would be devastating to your mental health, I'm sure. And
Oh,
she
sure,
handles
absolutely.
Yeah.
handles it like a pro, but she's got Nick Fury to kind of be there when he is there. And that's another complex part of the relationship, is that, he's gone most of the time on these missions and stuff, and then she gets home and gets to spend some time with her. But they absolutely love each other. That's what I got across from this, is that, these two people love each other, as crazy as both of their worlds are. It's something that easily translated on the screen, that there was a history between these two, and they've loved each other for a very long time. And even though, they had guns pointed at each other, that's the way their life is, but they didn't shoot each other. So that must mean they love each other.
That was a great line. So does this mean we should get a divorce or renew our vows?
That
Right.
was funny.
And just now that we're having this conversation, I'm thinking about it, like, her entire, I think I was so annoyed by the rest of the finale that, going back to kind of where she ended up with being able to say that I want to live in my own face again. Like, that's such a fascinating metaphor for the immigrant experience.
Oh, yeah.
and any number of experiences. And again, it's like, you look at this series and it just kept on whiffing the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Like, go and sail on by.
Yep.
Absolutely.
They had
there are so many people, so many minorities who identify with that line, living in your own skin. So many people who have to hide who they are,
Yeah.
just to get by, just to survive. And yeah, again, comparing it to Falcon and Winter Soldier, where they used a lot of the ideas of the refugees to compare to immigration, to minorities. And you have that great speech by Sam at the end about try harder, do better. And it does. And because they do accept it and they acknowledge it. You feel like the writers were scared to go that far, to actually say, like, well, maybe, nope, we don't want to tackle it.
Yeah, and maybe that's a good segue into, I think, a point that I've been arguing for a while on the chat and with Mark and other chats and in various things, and that's getting down to the writer's problem. And some people will go out there and say that it's because they suck at their job. Kind of, yeah. But when you start looking at the IMDb and the Wikipedia pages on these writers, these guys don't have a lot of experience. They maybe have 5-10 writing credits. That's the problem we're running into these days, is that there's more shows out there, there's fewer writers, and there's fewer writers with fewer reps and things. Mm-hmm. There's lots of shows that have done interesting things, like, again, going to Andor. Like, that thing was run by Tony Gilroy, who wrote, I think, almost all the episodes. And that's a guy who's been writing for 30 years and has Academy Award nominations for his writing. That's a guy who's gotten in a lot of reps on how to do story writing and tying in both character, structure, plot, story, theme, and interlacing all those things. And right now, what the MCU is dealing with in terms of the writers for these TV shows, and again, I'm somebody who's been relatively positive on it. I've been able to say where there's been positives and negatives. You're finding a lot of people who are really, really new. And even a lot of people who are really, really new who are showrunners. who are overseeing this entire thing, not even on an episodic basis. So, I mean, I think, when you get to your root cause of the problems, is the fact that you just don't have enough experienced writers out there who understand and are able to really work together all these elements of story into something really cohesive and really satisfying.
I believe there could definitely be a fear, kind of like what Alexis was talking about, where they didn't want to tackle something like that. And if you're brand new, maybe you don't want to rock the boat.
Oh, yeah.
You want to be as safe as possible. Let's give the people what they want. They want a big fight at the end of this. Let's go ahead and give that. This other thing I just saw on this whole immigration thing. I was just on Twitter the other day. It's trending and I don't want to touch it. So, that could be a very big contributor, I believe, as well. I mean, I don't understand how you have this much money as a company and if you want your product to definitely succeed, if you want people to look at this is the premier cinematic universe, folks. This is what you come to the dance for, to watch all your Marvel movies. You want a little something on Disney Plus as well. They should be ponying up the cash to make sure that these people are definitely worth the money and worth the investment of their subscribers. And unfortunately, if they're doing this, I don't know what the motivation is. I don't know if it's a situation where we're like, well, we don't have to pay this person this much, so we can save a little bit of money. Or is it a situation where they're like, hey, this guy did some interesting things. Maybe we give him the opportunity. We give him some money and he could really knock it out of the park for us. And I mean, it's Sam Jackson. How can we go wrong? I don't know. I really don't know. When we end this, okay, I want you guys, and you guys could go ahead and put this in your head. I want you guys to rank this out of what we've got so far. And you don't even have to, we don't have to go like, okay, this is 10th on my list out of 20, bottom half, top half when it comes to the series. Okay. So we'll touch back on that, but great point, Andrew.
Yeah. The other thing, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, another thing that got brought up, I saw a lot on Facebook and on Twitter and stuff about this, is a lot of people saying that instead of a series, this should have been a movie. What do you guys think that this would have been? Yeah. Because I know we're talking about cramming this all into 6 episodes, but sorry, Jesse, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'll easily support that with this. When we have our big throwdown at the end, who are our 2 main centerpieces? We've got Super Skrull Gravik, and then we have Mega Super Skrull. What's her name again? Gaia. And these are 2 of the most powerful, I think, in the Marvel Cinematic U, if you want to put them there. And the thing is that there is probably a situation where they may have talked about this being a movie at one point and then said, nah, oh boy, I don't know if we want to put that in
Disney Plus.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to put this in theaters. It would fit real well over here. And we'll kind of give, I mean, is this Fury's send-off? I mean, he's heading back up into space and we want to give him the opportunity to, I don't know if he's planning on being back. You guys probably know better than I do.
Well, he is going to be in the Marvels.
Okay. All right.
And apparently Samuel L. Jackson has said, I'll keep playing Nick Fury as long as they keep bringing my phone.
Okay.
He loves playing the character.
The role was, you guys got to remember, when they revamped the role, they pretty much made Nick Fury Samuel L. Jackson. There's a reason they cast him, because when they redesigned him in the comics,
he looks just like him.
Exactly.
Just like him.
Yeah, it's like that. It wasn't a case of, oh, who could we get to play Nick Fury? No, we all knew there was only one person who was going to play Nick Fury.
Right.
Was that also Brian Michael Bendis who oversaw that change? Because that was another Ultimates thing, if I remember right.
Yeah, it is definitely an Ultimates thing, because I remember him resembling Ultimates Nick Fury. I don't know if B&B had a part of that or not. But yeah, I mean,
the original Nick Fury looked like David Hasselhoff.
Yeah.
That was one of the great gag.
Oh,
David Hasselhoff as a Skrull being Nick Fury.
Absolutely.
That would have been funny. I would have loved that.
If we could have had a Nick Fury, the white Nick Fury that showed up in the comics forever and a day, like all of a sudden he's like one of the guys that they're pulling off of out of the Skrull pods or something like that. Well, wait a second. But anyway,
I would have loved to have seen that.
just a little nod.
Yeah. So I guess it all does come down to, we talked about things we would have liked seen, but how in the whole if we were the showrunners, how would we have made this better? Would it just been like, shove it off as a movie, get more superheroes, bring the xenophobia to the forefront? What is the main thing that we would have done if we were the showrunners that could have fixed this series?
I would have made it tighter, made it smaller. I think, oddly enough, I want to put kind of the same critique that I put on this with Black Widow. You don't make it a big throwdown. You make this get down and dirty. You play to that spy strength. Because again, it's kind of funny, as much as I love it. I don't clearly remember the end of Andor, but I do remember it being a lot. Oh yeah, it was the riot and everything. But again, it was something that is contained, that is relatively small, but is emotionally resonant. Like, again, that's why it annoyed me when it was Gaia in that conversation with Gravik, because that's your emotional center. Those two playing off each other, and that guilt and that history and that relationship, if that doesn't pay off in a satisfying way, you've pulled the rug out from the rest of the series.
All right.
So yeah, a movie could definitely work on that one.
Yeah, I'll second the whole make it more concise and more impactful. Pick something and go with it. You don't have to have so much in here that you don't have the time to get it all out there. So in other words, okay, if you want to go with, just like you said, Alexis, the xenophobia, all right, let's write something really good around that. Let's not have, vial X of 20,000 DNAs be the thing that is going to turn this whole thing around. Let's have a whole thing about getting that, securing it, and make sure nobody else gets a hold of it. And yes, make it matter to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think what we end up with this is like, I don't know if Gaia is going to be maybe Gaia should be like the person that everybody talks about in every single movie from here on out. Like, even though, that's just like what should be happening. Like, holy crap, there's a Skrull out there can whip everybody's butt. So yeah, make it more concise. Clearly this is something that centers around Fury. So I don't know if the xenophobia would be actually the way I would go. I would want to do something that's really central to Fury's core and his as a character, and make it mean something. So if it was a 3-episode series, I wouldn't cry. I don't care. Yeah. It's 3 episodes as long as it's really good stuff about Nick Fury and where he's going to go from here. Yeah. And oh my goodness, I want to feel like what is going to happen with this character in the next installment. Yeah. Now it's
make it about trust. Space. Like get out everything exterior. Just make it about trust. Do I trust my wife? Do I trust those people I used to work with? Do I trust myself? Yeah. All of those elements are in there. Like it was, and again, talk about quality of writing and knowing how to make commentary and how to do it well without a Wayans brother screaming off screen message. You get away from, larger social commentary and you just go to a simple theme like trust. Like, that's a really, really good way of doing it. I don't remember it well, but, I remember when they did the LMD life model decoy bit on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., that was all about that, and it worked really, really well.
Personally, I would have liked to have seen more characters. I mentioned this before, that, what if when they were bringing everyone out of the pods, that you saw more characters that you recognized. Because the problem with the MCU as it is right now is that, again, a lot of the characters that we have been identifying with and enjoying are gone. Those actors have gone out of their contract. Those characters are gone. And the idea of who can you trust becomes really not that interesting when you don't know a lot of these characters that have been replaced by Skrulls. Again, I love that they had Everett Ross in the beginning, and with that opening scene of finding out he's a Skrull, I'm like, oh, okay, this is getting interesting. But the only other character we know who was a Skrull was Ross, or Rhodey, wrong R word. Yeah. And
that's Scrody.
That's going on TikTok.
I will not take credit for that. I will give credit to that to my good buddies over at Kapow. But I heard Scrody multiple times when we were talking about the Marvel universe, Marvel Cinematic Universe.
It will only be Scrody if somebody goes with this idiotic idea to have him be a Skrull since Civil War.
Oh boy,
that would literally be something to make me pissed off beyond belief.
That is a good point. They never. I don't think they pointed out when. I think they said
hinted at it afterwards.
Yeah, it's like, was it after Civil War? Was it after Endgame? I mean, we know that he didn't get blipped. So, but for me, there was a lot of reoccurring characters in the MCU that I really wish they would have tapped, so we feel more the presence of this threat of people taking identities.
Yeah. And it's such a big deal that, like, I also think that should permeate throughout the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies as well. But that's not going to happen because isn't Kang the big guy that's going to be supposedly? I mean,
right now, because Jonathan Majors, apparently screwed up.
Yeah, he made a boo boo. So yeah, putting your career as a Marvel villain in jeopardy. So yeah, maybe they're like, well, we're going to scrap this. We'll go with Skrulls. Who knows what writers are going to do especially with the situation in Hollywood right now anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say right now, this is actually what kills me the most about the strike is that Disney needs their writers right now more than ever.
Oh, do they ever?
And nope, they're not paying. They're refusing to meet their demand. For the record, on last week's DMU Hollywood, Mark and Robert and I discussed the terms of the strike, how this is affecting Hollywood, and what we think personally on it's getting resolved. Did you guys want to jump in on that actually real quick on what you think can be done to help resolve the strike any faster, or what you think is going to happen? If you've got any points at all.
Yeah,
please.
I'll just go ahead real quick and just say I have no idea how it's going to get resolved, but I do side with the writers in most of their arguments. I think that they have a good reason to want to protect their job, and with some of the things that these guys are saying, like the big corporate executives are saying, I side with the people that are trying to make a living here. Yeah. And the people that are getting their big time bucks are the ones making these decisions and thinking that they can starve them out in some way. That's just not the way to do business, in my opinion. But
agreed.
Hey, you want your product to succeed. You want people that are good at their job. That's important.
Yeah. Andrew, any thoughts?
I've been listening to a lot of a podcast called The Town with I want to say it's Matthew Baloney, kind of very Hollywood insider, and they've been talking with everything about the strike for a week. So they've been talking about like reps from the WGA and the and SAG and things like that. And I kind of go with it. I think this thing's going to wrap up in the early fall, kind of September, October-ish. Because
all right, good prediction.
And his position on this, I think, is similar. Like, we're starting to see, even on the chat today, everyone was talking about earnings and quarterlies and stuff like that. The pressure is going to be on the studios very soon to be able to say, okay, what is this doing to your next 6 to 12 months to 2 years worth of earnings?
Yeah.
Because you're not spending money on getting product out the door, but you're also not necessarily generating revenue like movies, new shows, things like that. People could be cord cutting. I mean, we're already in an environment where a lot of people are cutting the cord over, overall cost of living and stuff like that. You don't want to incentivize people to do that more. And by cutting off people's content. So, I mean, on the flip side, the guild and the unions have only so much strike fund to keep people working. Then again, one of the gags I saw was the writer's comp. Somebody from on the writer's side posted a meme from the original Avengers where it's like, if you keep striking, you'll be poor. And then, of course, they go to Mark Ruffalo. That's my secret, Cap.
I'm
I'm
already
always poor.
poor.
So I mean,
That's good.
it's interesting. I mean, there's also been started to be some talk around third-party mediators, like government of California trying to mediate something and things along that line. But I think it's going to wrap up before the end of the year. I hope we start to see the changes that'll generate quality in this product again, because I think writing has been a fundamental issue of how this has been done. And honestly, I would not complain if we see a little less Marvel content that just goes up in quality.
Yes.
We've got to start to get people planning again and shooting for scenes, not shooting for coverage, and really constructing this movie in a way that works. Like, I mean, I just saw Oppenheimer a couple of weeks ago, and I mean, or about a week ago,
movie.
And it's amazing. And Nolan's one of those guys, and there's not a lot of them left out there who will go through and they shoot for what they need, not for everything else.
Absolutely.
And that's a major problem with what the Marvel method for movie making is right now, is that all your actions in pre-production, shoot for coverage for everything else, and then stitch it back together, and it's just not working anymore. Because you don't have the talent there, and you can't attract the talent.
Yeah, I think one of the big things I commented on is that contracts need to be rewritten now to include payment for streaming. If I don't know why Netflix and so many of these streaming services are not offering data on how much of their shows are getting picked up or rewatched or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's been a big part of the strike, is that because of streaming services, residuals are no longer a thing, and syndication payments are not happening to writers and to actors. Those who have been with us remember we talked about this a lot when Black Widow came out, because Scarlett Johansson was supposed to get a piece of the gross when her film's released, but then of course it went straight to streaming because of the virus of unknown origin, and she lost a ton of money. Well, contracts need that now. Streaming is a major thing. Syndication is no longer a major player in media, and we need to rewrite these contracts.
Data is powerful, and I'm not just talking about the guy from the Goonies. I am talking.
You're not talking about Brett Spiner either.
And I think that's a lot of why they don't disclose any of that, because that's going to give somebody somewhere some power in a way of what they would probably believe is gaming the system or actually seeing how things work. What should we believe it? And that's just big company thinking right there. That's just the way that is. They feel that they're protecting themselves by not disclosing all that. So, but yeah, people, I don't want quantity over quality. I want good stuff. Nope. I want something that I can hang my hat on and say, okay, this was a great show. And we haven't had that in a long time. I think the last series that I really enjoyed, we got through probably 3 or 4 episodes of Ms. Marvel. Stop there. I kind of enjoyed what I got from the She-Hulk just because of the meta-ness of it. But I think the one that I enjoyed the most was Hawkeye. I think Hawkeye
was so good.
Hawkeye in the first season of Loki. Those two were good for me.
Okay. Yeah. Moon Knight was okay. We finished that, but I mean, it's like Mark loved that one, and I was just like, okay, well, I mean, okay, it was all right. I think I wanted more Moon Knight than what we actually got in there.
Moon Knight actually, I think, had a similar problem to Secret Invasion in that we're not seeing the big enough picture of how this is affecting the Marvel universe that we know.
Yeah.
You know what I've actually just started reading, guys?
Tell me.
Great Lake Avengers.
Oh boy, oh boy.
What is Great Lake Avengers?
Oh,
Jesse, you want to take this?
I'm so okay. All right. So, I mean, clearly
you're better than Alpha Flight.
Oh, you would, I guarantee you, Evan Bevins would have an answer for you right now. Because he has read, I'm sure, all of Alpha Flight and all of
Great Lake,
Great Lake
Avengers. Yeah.
It's a very,
Hey, Evan's
very
a fellow Sharks fan. He's my boy.
it's a very funny take on a super team. Some of you would know, Alexis, name some of the members, because isn't one of them like Flatman or something? And then there's
Flatman, who keeps getting confused for Mr. Fantastic, Mr. Immortal, Big Bertha, and Evan's, secret waifu, Squirrel Girl.
Squirrel Girl.
Oh, there goes Squirrel Girl.
Yeah.
Well, Great Lake Avengers got me kind of thinking about what could be done with series like this, because part of the fun and charm of that one is that it's a superhero team in freaking Milwaukee who
Yeah.
want to be a part of the big picture but can't. And when they do save the world, it doesn't even get reported on the news.
Yeah.
And until we can actually get a better understanding of where the superheroes are in the event, as far as the Avengers in the world, kind of like what we got with Falcon and Winter Soldier, where we actually did establish what's going on with Captain America. I like the idea of this smaller team that, is not dealing, when they're dealing with massive world events, it's not going to get reported on. It's not going to be on the 11 o'clock news or whatever. And that's what I want to see more of with these shows. It's like, it's like, okay, obviously you cannot connect it right now by having a bunch of your A-list actors and superheroes show up on the shows. I get that. Then isolate them more.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you, Avengers Endgame happened. You're not going to touch it. You're just not going to meet the scale of what happened there and the electricity that happened with your fan base. Just don't even try to approach it with this Super Skrull nonsense. Just focus on things like Alexis is saying. Isolate things a little bit more. A GLA would be great, especially just these guys trying to be a team of some sort. Who's writing that, Alexis? Any idea off the top of your head?
Book is in the car, actually. I'd have to go run and get it.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, for God's sakes, they have Mr. Immortal puts in a personal ad in the newspaper saying, looking for people in fun costumes with powers. And one of the guys who shows up is a dude in bondage gear who clearly got the wrong idea from the memo.
It's good stuff. It really is.
Yeah, but I mean,
really
to that
is.
end, that's where I think the concept was good, but obviously there were flaws with the Defenders. Do that kind of street level thing. I mean, do a West Coast Avengers. Do She-Hulk. Transport over Daredevil. Find some other guys to go with. I mean, I have been begging for it since season 4 of Agents. Get Robbie Reyes and Frank Castle together.
Oh,
how awesome
yes.
would that be?
My goodness.
Wait, Robbie Reyes as in their version of Ghost Rider?
Ghost Rider.
Oh, Ghost Rider and Punisher would be badass.
I
have been dying for a supernatural Avengers team. I mean, we freaking set up Black Knight, and that's gone nowhere.
And Blade.
Yeah,
Blade. Stuck in development hell.
Yeah, how about Blade, Black Knight, and Ghost Rider?
Yeah.
Do it to it.
Throw Frank Castle in there just because Bernthal needs some money.
Bernthal, give him all the money.
He's got a great podcast, actually, real ones. It's
really?
Listen.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's interviewed a few different people. He's kind of going through a lot of people he's worked with and just some other people who've had kind of interesting stories. It's pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, Bernthal's got a good one. The other one I started listening to, speaking of former superhero actors, and of course Michael Rosenbaum.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Michael Rosenbaum's podcast is where James Gunn met his future wife on, wasn't it?
I remember hearing.
Don't think so, because he said he'd only ever done one podcast, and it was Rosenbaum's.
Mm-hmm.
But he actually just did that like within the last 3 months, and it's really good because he talks about a lot of the stuff that's going on currently with DC and things like that. And his list of favorite superhero movies is interesting.
I'm sure.
Into the Spider-Verse is his absolute favorite superhero movie.
Very cool.
I could see that.
Yep.
But yeah, like I said, go with some of these smaller teams that are not going to affect the world on a massive scale until we freaking know who our next team of Avengers are.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean we're a quarter of the way through Phase 5, and we're what 4 years theoretically
Yeah, something
away.
like that.
4 years theoretically away from the end of Phase 6. It needs a lot of momentum at this point. And I don't know if it'll get there.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. Here's hoping the CEOs of Marvel are freaking listening to our show.
Yep. You mean the giant robot called Kevin?
Yes, that.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, you have to give She-Hulk credit for calling out the fact that there's always a giant CGI punch up at the end of every one of these series. And then
Mhm.
Secret Invasion not taking the hint.
Oh my god, right?
Right.
I think another joke I made was that they kept showing Gravik in his select human form, but he's still supposed to be hiding out and doing other stuff. It's like, okay, were you afraid that you were going to confuse the hell out of your viewers, or did you not want to pay more actors to play the role? There's a scene with Gravik fighting with Russian soldiers, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure Gravik should look like someone else. Just saying. All right. Is there anything else we forgot to touch on, guys?
I want to hear the rankings. So this I'm just gonna do top half, bottom half, and this is gonna be in the bottom half for me.
Okay.
It might be in the more near the middle than some of the other series, but it's definitely in my bottom half. I was disappointed. I again, just my issues with it was how predictable I felt it was, and how anticlimactic, in my opinion, this was. This had so much more promise, so much more could have happened, so much more impact could have occurred, and it just kind of fell short, in my opinion. So I mean, as far as a focus on Nick Fury, I mean, the idea I got from this was Danny Glover going, I'm too old for this shit. And that's kind of what I felt like he was kind of going through. He was good at it still. He was still good at what he does, but he just it's worn him down, being this spy. But yeah, I just wish there was more that happened that I could say, hey guys, make sure to watch Secret Invasion. Just didn't happen.
Definitely. All right, Andrew, what do you think? Top, bottom?
Bottom half.
Yeah.
Very. I don't know. I think this might be the bottom. I don't
really?
think.
Worse than Miss Marvel, huh?
Oh, I really liked Miss Marvel.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought Miss Marvel's top half, actually. I thought the characters, it kind of has the same problems of structure, story, conflict, but the characters and the writing and the chemistry is so charming that it kind of overrides a whole lot of that for me. This one just kind of like, Jackson's good in it. It's a little bit dreary. I'd probably put it down there with Moon Knight, where again, I enjoyed Moon Knight. I think Moon Knight actually gives me more interesting stuff to work with, but I don't know if I'd rewatch either of those anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm going to go with bottom half as well. It was just disappointing for me. Again, Secret Invasion is such a great story arc. There's so much that brings up, so much that it could have played with, and they really did not take advantage of that. And in the end, I just sat back going, so was this necessary to watch before the Marvels? Because frankly, I am looking forward to the Marvels. I do want to see that. That movie does look good. I think I'm going to enjoy it. But yeah, I'm just like, was there a point to this? How does, you feel like you watch and go, how did this affect the MCU storyline? How is this going to come into play with Armor Wars and the Marvels? Because this is supposed to spring into both of those. But
I'm planning for that to be the first. Marvels is going to be the first movie I take both of my kids to, or my older two kids to.
Yeah.
because we've been kind of catching up on all that stuff. My daughter's a big fan of both Captain Marvel and loved Miss Marvel.
How old is she
So,
again?
She's just about to turn 10,
Oh, that's a great age.
which I don't approve of. I did not say she grew up that fast. Jess, you know what I'm talking about, man.
Oh boy, do I ever.
More so than I do, actually. So, but yeah.
Sorry,
my
children have 4 legs.
I have a feeling I'm not gonna need to reference this at all when I see the Marvels.
Nah.
Yeah.
You won't have to explain anything to the kids.
Yeah. I am still also looking forward to Armor Wars.
Yeah. I mean, Don Cheadle was great. The question of how long Rhodey's been a Skrull is something else, but Cheadle was great, and the one scene where he fires Fury was fantastic.
Oh yeah. Admittedly, though, it does feel like he was kind of wasted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
exactly. It's another way.
well, who doesn't love Don Cheadle? You know, he's one of the greatest actors, I think. And yeah, it's like, again, it's like, okay, happy that you did something with him, but I think you could have done more with him.
I don't want it. I want them to pull Terrence Howard out of that pod.
Please. I mean, what kind of water cooler talk would it have been? It would have.
Oh my God!
You know what? They brought in Evan Peters for that throwaway gag in WandaVision. They might as well go all the way with the meta joke.
Do it! God, they recast Rhodey. And then you really
know
have
that
Kat Dennings off screen reading that line.
I think CinemaSins made that joke because they just released the honest trailer for Secret Invasion.
And they're talking about the Avengers goo.
Yeah.
Gross.
All right. Well, I think we have wrapped up everything about this show. So, yeah, folks, if you want to watch it, go ahead. It's on Disney Plus, but I think all 3 of us stand by. If you're really interested, go read the books.
Yes, absolutely. My goodness. I mean, just folks, I would actually, let's do it this way. Disney, put that at the beginning of every single show that has a Marvel character in it. Hey, to learn more about this character, please go read the comics. The comic book industry needs you. Please, you've got enough money
about that right now.
I would love actually that would actually be great on Disney Plus to have kind of an extra feature, sort of like what they've been doing with the other shows. Have an extra feature that talks about the you know what the original comics that they're pulling the story arcs from, so people can. I mean, I know that I love comics, but I'm still learning about a lot of writers from the premier ages. I have not read the Secret Invasion story arc. I want to, and I would love to have a better idea of where to start and what issues I should be looking at and what writers I should be looking at. That is a great idea. They should be doing that. You guys are absolutely right.
What were you going to say, Andrew?
I was going to say probably something along that line. DC's been doing that a lot, where every time they're doing an advertisement for something now, they're also saying, at the end of it, here's, go back and read the original source material, and they'll have like some Blue Beetle stuff, or they'll have Flashpoint or whatever on it. Though God knows that probably would not do the Flash any favors from a quality point of view.
That's just going to make everyone look at the Flash and go, okay, so what the hell were you smoking when you wrote the script?
Yeah, but I mean, okay, maybe I'll just put this as a separate bit of commentary, and I'll keep it very brief. I primarily read DC Comics. If only for the reason that I like the way they group their stories and make it easier to follow books for. Like when Civil War came out, you go to a bookshelf and you see Civil War, and there's an edition of Civil War for every single character. I'm not sure which one to read.
Very true.
Like say, for really big events, DC's a lot better being able to say, here's the collected Court of Owls, for example.
Here's the contained story. You don't need to do any supplemental reading. You're absolutely right.
Or you've either got the contained story, or you've got the slightly expanded edition that actually has all the other tie-in books. So, again, Court of Owls is a good one. So you get, Batman, Detective Comics, Nightwing, Robin, Batgirl, that sort of thing. And they tie it together really well. Marvel has never done that quite as well. And I think for me personally, it's always been a little bit intimidating to actually try and access their stuff that way.
Look, I was going to do, I haven't done it yet. At some point I want to schedule it. I'm going to do a show on the Inferno crossover, which happened back in, I want to say, the late 80s. And that's essentially, that's where Marvel and Limbo kind of ended up taking over New York City. 40 some core books, and then there was probably another 20 just kind of like offshoots of where, oh hey, Inferno is affecting this book over here. There's a mailbox that ate somebody, and that's it. That's all that happened in the books. But you're making a point there that I kind of agree with. If DC can keep their stuff a little bit more contained sometimes than Marvel does, because they want, if it's an event, folks, it's going to affect everybody, and you need to buy every single book so you can know exactly what happened in that event.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on this, Andrew. A lot of what I have up in my comic book collection is, well, they're collections. They're like, it's like I've got Crisis on Infinite Earths. I've got the big book. And most of them are DC.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, Jesse, don't forget, now I'm pointing at you. We still have to schedule Spider-Punk.
That's right. I can't wait.
And later down the road, we got to schedule Gargoyles.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Andrew, you want in on that one when we review
I am definitely in for that one. So I'm a couple of issues behind, but I've been enjoying that quite a bit.
Oh, me too. I love it.
I feel like this is going to be a situation where I have no idea what's going on with this property, but I will read it, and then you guys will educate me. I can't wait.
Literally, watch the first 2 seasons, and then you will be all the better for it. It is literally, do not go near the third. This comic series replaces the 3rd season.
Oh, really?
The first 2 seasons of Gargoyles are some of the best TV, right up there with Batman the Animated Series.
Duly noted.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Like, show your kids. Your kids
actually, I'm watching with Logan.
Love it.
All right.
I've been watching with Logan for probably the last few months, and he's really been enjoying it. So
cool. Very cool. All right.
Okay. Now that we've discussed shows and comics that we'd rather be talking about than this, let's go ahead and walk into plugs then. Andrew, why don't you go ahead and start? Tell us what you got coming up, where we can find you, and what else is going on.
All right. Well, I think right now I don't have a lot on the schedule right now, though. I might be talking to you about Ahsoka as well. I will be doing, I think right now Mark and I are tentatively scheduling November 9th to do the Remembrance Day, Veterans Day show. I think I've talked him into doing the Pacific this year. Doing a little synergy with Oppenheimer here a little bit. And then personally, what I do, I'll always throw a plug towards where I train, which is Havoc and Esteemed Martial Arts, based here in Calgary, Alberta. Additionally, my instructor, Jay Cooper, is doing this wonderful series on kind of reality-based self-defense called Reality Check with Jay Cooper. So you can find that on YouTube. You can also find his kind of self-defense page on Aftermath on Facebook, called Aftermath Fight After the Fight. And finally, he is putting out a new seminar via the Budo Brothers, which is a great martial arts lifestyle brand based out of here in Calgary. They also make some fantastic gear for anybody who trains.
All right. Awesome. Jesse, where are we going to hear from you next?
Yeah. All right. So this past week on the Source Material Comics podcast feed, you could hear me, Mark. Oh, it's just me and Mark. Maybe ChatGPT got involved. I don't know. Where we talked Avengers Defenders Tarot, which was a great book written by Alan Davis. Alan Davis was a premier writer of Excalibur back in the day, and he wrote a book in 2020 that crossed those two teams, Avengers and Defenders, with each other, and it's fantastic. It's zany. Mark said it best. It's a zany book. If you enjoy some crazy stuff happening in your comic books, cartoon characters are showing up, you don't know what's going on. It's something to check out. So me and him talked about that. Probably about 20 minutes, half an hour. And next Monday, the Unspoken Issues podcast, 90s centric comic podcast. We are releasing our discussion. It's me, Matthew Price of Speeding Bullet Comics, and my good buddy Dean Compton. Capwolf is coming to the airwaves. We are discussing the time when Captain America got turned into a werewolf. You don't want to miss it. His fight with Wolverine was something else. And Wolverine, as Dean says, not a wolf guy. Just remember that. But anyway, Capwolf, it's coming. Man and Wolf, I think, was the name of the story. So it's a lot of fun. So there you go. I think that's. I'll wait. I'll plug one more show. I did have the chance to guest over on the Kapow, the Pop Culture Podcast. I mentioned them earlier. We did I participated in like a vote of some sort. I don't know if it was a vote. It was a list, but you could vote people. You could veto people's picks, where we listed every Marvel Cinematic Universe from bottom to top. And this past, I think it was today, 5-1 released. So we had a great discussion. I didn't get to participate in the top 11, but I got to participate in the middle, which means I got to figure out where I was going to put Thor Ragnarok. That's right. Yeah,
Where
I
did
had
you
a
put
hand in
Thor
that.
Ragnarok?
Well, it isn't in the episode I did. I'll tell you that much, because I made sure. Well, let's just say I had powers to make sure that it wasn't getting anywhere below the top 11. So there you go. But that's it. Now I'll step back. I'm done.
All right. As far as future episodes of TV Party Tonight, next week, I'm going to be back talking Twisted Metal, the latest video game adaptation on Peacock. This is going to be a lot of fun. We're bringing in Vincent Van Spock, who was supposed to be with us tonight. Sadly, there was a miscommunication on the schedule. He had to bow out. Hopefully, I believe he's coming back for that. We're bringing in another new reviewer. If I can get him my Peacock password, a good friend of mine who knows the game series front to back. So I trust him.
Good.
As far as other ones coming down the road, we are going to be talking the new season of Futurama that's debuted on Hulu. As of recording this, the first 3 episodes have dropped in. So far, they've been okay. I think first episode was good, but they did one recently on Bitcoin mining where they tried to make it like gold rush mining, and I can't help but feel like the joke got a little overstretched.
Ouch.
Could be wrong. As Andrew
Or was it
mentioned,
overbent?
Hit the soundboard. Where's it at? Need like a small trumpet that makes a really.
I dedicate that one to you, Evan.
okay, as Andrew mentioned, we are going to be talking Ahsoka. That's tentatively scheduled for mid-October. Mark Radulich and I will be doing a midday discussion on Only Murders in the Building. We're also looking at the upcoming Amazon Prime series, Gen V. And I don't have it on the schedule yet, but I am looking to also add the live action One Piece show, as we're going to follow this up after our discussion with Cowboy Bebop. Can anime actually be adapted for live action without sucking? We're going to find that out. All right. And as far as the plugs that actually do pay my bills, because I'm still waiting for Mark to start paying me for this gig. Yeah, aren't we all? Honeysuckle Rose Creations, where fashion meets fandom at the intersection of geek and chic. We are going to be heading to the Colorado Springs Comic-Con here at the end of August. That's a great show. We always have a lot of fun with that one. Really excited because Bruce Campbell is one of the guests of honor.
Neat.
Groovy.
Can't wait for that. After that, we got the Cincinnati Comic Expo in September. We just found out Stephen Amell is going to be appearing at that one.
Oh, wow.
So fans of the Arrowverse, be heading out to Cincinnati for that. After that, we got Planet Anime here in Kansas City. This is a first time for this show. It is a spinoff of Kansas City's major Comic-Con, Planet Comic-Con. This is the first time they're doing it. They have so many cast members from voice actors from so many animes. I think they've got like more than half of Naruto and Demon Slayer at this point.
Daggone. Wow.
So, gonna have a lot of fun with that one. As always, you can find us. We have our stores fully stocked on Handmade at Amazon and Etsy. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter. I refuse to call it X, Instagram, and God help me, I'm now on TikTok.
Oh, good. I tell you what, that's crazy. You TikTokers.
I am on TikTok solely for my company. That's it.
Now you can get tagged in really weird stuff from Merc too.
Oh, I
Yeah.
have been already, several. Do you have any idea what it's like that when I start scrolling through what I've been missing, he posts all those videos from naked karaoke?
Oh man.
I've not had that. I have not encountered one of those yet because I'm not on TikTok very often. But my wife is on TikTok and she has seen it. She's like, there's some things that Mark just needs to keep to himself. And that's all of a sudden good fun. We love you, brother.
We do love you, Mark.
Yeah, he was talking about that on the Metal Hammer of Doom jukebox, and I was like, I haven't been on TikTok, and now no desire to.
I just been going nuts because I've been researching how to put jewelry on TikTok. I mean, it's not easy. It really is not easy to figure out, other than just being like, "Ooh, look, pretty, shiny."
Yeah.
This isn't even something I make. This is something I bought from a friend. Okay,
Gosh.
here. This is something I made. It's
Look at it.
It was made from a Lego.
Nice.
Yeah, but you know what's gotten the most views and likes? A video of Cleo, my dog, with the Paw Patrol filter on her.
Oh, I think I saw that. That is, yeah. I don't even
Yeah,
know
it's just
life.
I'm just sitting there going, all those years of broadcasting school and studying editing and studying marketing and out the window.
Out the window. It's a young man's game out there. That's why I just I can't do it.
Young man's game, nothing. It's a young dog's game. All right. So, yes. So, thank you all for tuning in. For myself, for Jesse, for Andrew, be well, behave, be safe, and
be a Skrull.
be a Skrull. That's a good one.